Welcome to the Multi-Orgasmic Mama podcast, where sexy motherhood taboos are broken. I'm Tilly Storm, holistic sex and Jade Egg coach and tantric sex teacher, all-around pleasure and prosperity advocate, and mama of two. If you are looking to get the spark back in your sex life and relationship, if you'd like to revive desire and feel sexy again without hormones, years of therapy, or trying things that don't feel authentic in the bedroom, then download my free Ignite Your Desire e-guide at www.tillystorm.com/e-guide. This episode is brought to you by the Sensually Embodied Woman Collective. If you're ready to remove all your blocks to pleasure, turn on and feeling confident and sexy in your body through my paid programs and offerings, then head to www.tillystorm.com today. All right, welcome back, Hot Mamas. It's Tilly here, and I have a very special guest for you today, Hanna. Hanna, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for being on and sharing your amazing story. So today I wanted to bring Hanna on to tell you about her experience through my Essentially Embodied Woman program as well. She was an epic participant who added so much positivity and bliss and just love for sexuality in general to the group vibe, which was just so beautiful to have that energy there.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you were experiencing before you joined the program and why you decided to do it in the first place.
I wasn't experiencing any discomfort, no pain around my sexuality at all. I thought I was very grounded in my sexuality and very, very, very comfortable in my own skin. And I just knew, I know that sexuality, I study it. So I know that it's fluid and it's always changing, evolving, growing. And with where I'm going, I want to help people with their sexualities. So when I found out that women can have multiple orgasms or just 8 of them, like you talk about, I was blown away. I was like, what? I can only do 2. And I think I'm a confident sexual goddess already. So I was like, I guess there's a lot I need to know and learn about myself. And I'm definitely the type of person, practice what you preach, or put the mask on yourself first before you can help put a mask on someone else.
Yeah.
Attitude.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, you want to tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and your experience. And, you're a youngin' too. So I'd love to hear a little bit about you in particular, anything that you'd like to share with us.
Yeah, I think so I'm 24 now. I was raised pretty different, and I was raised a Jehovah's Witness, and it's very extreme. I would just call it an extremist cult-like religion. I wouldn't classify them as a cult just yet, but yeah. So, extremely sexually suppressed, or a lot of people could have sexual dysfunctions, or just there's a lot of manipulation around sex. So I know, I was very, very discouraged from masturbation, which, when I turned 18, I started just exploring sexuality and just trying to work on myself. And in doing so, I just stumbled upon just some fun stuff. So I definitely explored toys at 18, but I just figured I enjoyed just more natural. I'm not a big vibrator person or whatever. So that was just where I came from, extremely sexually suppressed.
Yeah.
So I'm very explorative and curious. And now just work has guided me to now I've been, in April, it'll be 2 years. I've been a stripper, or an adult entertainer.
Yeah.
And I always I kind of just stumbled upon that for work, because I was just in this awesome place in my life where, school was ending, or that semester was done. I was I quit my job, not because like it was just very toxic and I was just like looking for other things. And I had this mindset of like, what is a job that I would want to do? And I wouldn't have to get paid for it, you know? And so I was already bartending, working in bartending in strip clubs. And like, I just, my work experience before was just not fun. A lot of customer service. And I loved going to work every day, like in a club, and it's like dancing and like everyone's just having a good time. And like, I was like, why do people like not want to come to work? This is so much fun. Like, I'm like that girl holding this tray of drinks, like dancing on my own.
Yeah.
So, I had this opportunity where I was like in Las Vegas and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be young forever. I'm not going to have this body forever. I'm not even going to have this opportunity of like freedom of time forever. And I also won't have financial stability forever. I'm not betting on it. And so I just decided, YOLO, I'll just try dancing and see if I like it. And I fell in love. Like, it wasn't anything sexual for me. Like, I didn't look at it as like sexual at all, to be honest. I was just watching the girls dance on stage and it's like they're mesmerizing. Like, for the first 2 weeks I was bartending, I think my jaw was just permanently dropped open, just admiring the goddesses. Like, there's no other way to put it except these beautiful goddesses just opening up on stage and like really just, wow, diving in. I would definitely say like feminine power. It's just beautiful. And so I was like, you know what? I have to do it. And I fell in love. It's 2 years later. And like definitely doing that for work made me challenge my sexuality because like, I'm working hand in hand with people that are 100% in the sex industry and then people that kind of just skate around it. And I would definitely say I'm someone that skates around it. I don't like anyone that wants to be a prostitute. Like, that's awesome. I think women shouldn't feel shamed if they are a prostitute. That's just like not my job.
Yeah.
I definitely like looked at like the job title as I am an adult performer. I'm an adult entertainer. And I'm a dancer. So like those are like the titles I definitely like stuck to and wanted to fill. And so like just dancing in general made me really, really consider like what are my boundaries, because they're challenged all day, every day when I go to work with women, with staff, with clients. You got to really like, what do I really want here? Or like, what am I really looking for? It really just challenges sexuality, I think, in general. Mm-hmm. And then, I'm a college student. And so I'm going to school. My first path was just therapy. Now I'm changing it definitely to be more of sex and relationship intimacy therapy, just because it comes so natural. Like, I don't know, it's just so natural to me. And even though I was very sexually suppressed as a kid, or no encouragement, barely any education, like I didn't even tell my mom when I got my first period. Like, it was just like,
yeah.
So, but I've never had troubles. I've never had, everything just comes natural. Dealing with like oral sex or regular sex or communication around sex. Like, I don't know, it just comes so natural to me. So I was like, might as well use it for money, or like, use my sexuality to my benefit. And in doing that, it just has only grown me as like a woman, and made me like super confident, and made me realize like my insecurities are bullshit, for lack of a better word. Like, there's no point in being insecure. It really helped me just dive into my body and be okay with it and comfortable with it, which like I feel like just not on a pedestal, but like glowing. I already feel great. So I find it funny that I was attracted to your program, because I feel like not many women like me would be humble enough to even take your program. Because, like, I'm great with sex. I'm like, it just is so natural. Like, men come to me because they like my sexuality. Like, so that like cockiness or pride, or I think even a woman as confident or like as a stripper, we still have insecurities that like take us over or like can get the best of us. Of course, like we're women. And just swallowing that pride, I could see a lot of like dancers or just extremely already confident women not willing to swallow their pride and be like, yeah, I could learn more, or like, yeah, I can expand, or maybe I am having some difficulty in this area. Like, can I receive more? Yeah, I definitely am in that mindset, and I'm so ready to like just add on to the pile, I guess.
Right? Isn't that awesome? I love that so much, that you're someone that, you naturally love sex. You're naturally confident. You have this confidence about you. You have this love for men and for whoever. But it's just like, what I love about your essence is like you've been able to take that love for it and it be an empowering thing for you, whether, as opposed to, someone who's doing this because they think that's all that they can do, or, out of a form of desperation. And
Yeah.
my experience, like some of the most enlightened, amazing sex goddesses are strippers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Because like there's this level of owning it that you have that's just like not, that seems unattainable for a lot of women, or especially like moms, right? It just seems unattainable to be that so in your own skin and so confident and empowered in your sexuality. But what I'm hearing is that like part of your journey is just being able to expand and grow your sexuality. And also, I know, because I know you, that a lot of it is about you stepping into your own sexual sovereignty and empowerment around your sexuality for you, as opposed not for someone else's pleasure and, benefit, but for your benefit and your own pleasure. So I would love to hear about that journey and what you've all learned through that.
Oh my God, all I've learned so much. I'm almost like bitterly selfish with my happiness and my pleasure only. Like other things, yeah, I'm not selfish with, but like, I was in a really, really bad mental place when I left being a Jehovah's Witness. And so like I really felt like my identity, my emotions, my ideas, my thought, like everything about me at the time, or everything I thought about myself, like I thought was just like a lie. I was so confused, and just doing my own emotional journey and healing. And I've really had to challenge my mindsets, my mental blocks, and I would say like all the manipulation and brainwashing. And like that's like heavy stuff to deal with, but it's only given me pleasure. Like, and really challenging, I guess challenging pain versus pleasure, or like comparing the two, is like I would say a common theme just in my life. Like facing my fears, facing my emotional pain has only given me pleasure. Or like accepting or welcoming things that have brought me pain, I'm able to like let it go. And when I let it go, or, when I learn how to let things go in different ways, mentally, emotionally, physically, there's no like set in stone recipe, but, when I am able to like let things go, I just receive more pleasure. And a huge thing I learned just going through your program was a lot with my emotional pain, like more insecurities that were coming up that, it's pretty painful. It's scary. And you just like, what resists persists, right? And it's like, you don't even want to look at it. You just want to keep resisting it. But that pain inside, like to me, it just kept festering and getting worse and worse. Or, that emotional pain would like translate into something painful in my body. And so going through your program, I specifically, I'm kind of ruthless to myself and like facing what actually hurts, not physically, but emotionally around sex or around my insecurities or mental blocks with pleasure. But using your guidance, your tools, what we go through in the program, I look at it as healing. But to like actually like let go of those discomforts, it's just all in my head. That pain is like all in my head. And you can soothe it with pleasure. And like that whole just like facing pain, accepting pain, and then soothing it with pleasure is like, why are people doing this more often?
Right.
It only makes sense. Like, and I just do a lot of research and like brainwashing or manipulation and like stuff like that. And I trained dogs actually for a while. That's just like total side note. But I trained a service dog for a blind man. And the idea of just positive reinforcement, like I can't stress that enough of how effective it is. Mm-hmm. And it's so effective that in training a dog, I can positively reinforce this dog to see for someone that can't see now. And that's just in a dog, but like positively reinforcing myself, like where, just in how I was raised, I don't even feel comfortable necessarily like crying in front of anyone, expressing or even welcoming the pain or like, I'm really good at just putting on this facade of like, life is good. And it's like, sometimes it's not, mm-hmm. But like, it's great to positively reinforce yourself in another direction. And your program did that like perfectly for me.
Yay.
Such positive orgasmic reinforcement.
Yeah. And well, it's so cool that your blocks weren't so much around sexuality itself, but around the vulnerability, the intimacy, the emotional blocks. Mm-hmm. Right. And we had to work with those because those were the blocks to your next level of pleasure. So what I think a lot of women don't understand is that they're like, oh, my orgasm's just fine. Thank you. Or, I'm great with sex. It's all good. And I don't need to work on it. And I will call bullshit on every one of you.
Everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's always another, unless you are living an omnigasmic state at all times, you have more work to do around your blocks to pleasure. And people are like, what omnigasmic? What does that even mean? It means like in all areas of your life, you're getting off on everything. Like this idea. I don't know if any of you have heard of existential kink.
I don't know, like, but if you could describe it, I might know it. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Well, I don't want to go too into it, but it's a book that Dr. Carolyn Elliott wrote. I hope to have her on the podcast one day. But she is this psychotherapist who really found how all of our pain is actually an existentially kinky pleasure. Right.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So she has this whole method for helping people take their greatest pain and make it like their greatest pleasure. So the whole idea of taking your pain and making it a pleasure opens you to more pleasure, right? Because then the pain becomes pleasurable. So tell me a little bit about your journey from being outwardly sexually confident and like relying on others to give you pleasure versus what you've been able to discover for yourself and how to please yourself.
It's so much more mental and emotional. Like, I just can't stress that enough. I think like in the past, like before the program, like let's say my partner, like, okay, for example, yesterday was Valentine's Day, but he had a stomach ache and like, just didn't, like no one wants to have sex and they're like feeling like they're going to throw up or, like that's not fun. And like in the past, I probably would have like got very insecure. What's wrong with me? I'm ugly. I didn't get dressed well enough. I don't know, like all the insecurities us girls have. That's like normally how I would have reacted. But instead, like let's say sex just doesn't happen for some reason. And it's not like a bad, or it's not because like a fight. It's nothing because there's like trauma or problems. It's just because it didn't work out. Instead of like normally, I think I would shame myself, blame myself, guilt the hell out of myself, and then make myself feel like I'm not deserving of the pleasure. And that's how I'd like justify what happened with like how I'm emotionally feeling. And instead, I can recognize like this has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with a stomach ache. But that doesn't mean I can't receive pleasure on my own, or it doesn't mean I can't like masturbate later or like explore something. But I don't even want to say like necessarily masturbate. Like I've been able to find so many other things that are a sexual release that is not sexual at all, which would be like, pole dancing. In your program, you suggest dancing in the mirror. And that is huge. Like that's all I do as a dancer, pretty much. There's mirrors all over a strip club, and 10 out of 10 recommend. So like, just giving myself that self-pleasure. For example, dancing in the mirror. It's so pleasurable to admire myself, and not in a vain way, in an appreciating way of like, dang, that angle looks good. Like, okay, I'm like flowing in a nice way to the music, or wow, those hips like move that way. Dancing or in exercise, or some meditation practices, or like the Jade Egg practices that, it's awesome to prioritize that self-pleasure. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like orgasmic, but it's just giving myself what I'm looking for in sex. So like, I guess ladies would get all beautiful and dressed up and like in lingerie or whatever, but like what they're looking for is to be like admired and complimented, and because they're not really looking at themselves.
Yeah.
They're looking for that from someone else. And it's like, if someone's not able to give that to me at this time, because they're sick or not feeling well, or doesn't mean I shouldn't receive it.
Right.
I should still, every time I've done that, which I would say it's been like a good 2 years of me like actually practicing it, but like your program takes me a lot deeper.
Mm-hmm.
But like just in me doing that, all it does is gets me addicted to life. Like all it does is make me happy and expands who I am, and like, oh my gosh, boosts my confidence like no other. So like now, like if I go to my partner, I'll go to him not needy, not like expecting sex, not upset because he didn't give it to me, or, like all these just like, like it's just like emotions. I don't have that. I don't feel that because like I already did that. I gave myself that pleasure or attention, gratitude that I needed. I had like a sexual release of, expressing emotion and like moving, whether it's like with yoga or dance or, even a walk, honestly. Could be a sexual experience for me, at least.
Right. Me too.
Okay.
Omni-orgasmic.
Awesome. Like, I'm glad I'm not the only one.
Right.
But, even simple things, a shower, a bath, like I can make sexual, even though I'm not masturbating or I'm not having sex at all. And going into a sexual encounter or a sexual relationship already just confident, you already are released, like you're not needy, you're not like pulling. It just creates more pleasure. Like honestly, like no guy, and I'm saying this from a stripper aspect, like no guy wants a needy girl. No guy's attracted to that. And no guy wants a nitpicky, complaining little brat either. Like, you didn't have sex with me. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Like, shut up. Do it yourself. Like, no one wants that. So, like, when I can provide that for myself and, like, already have, like, a great foundation to start from, it just gives me a better, like, diving board to jump off of.
Yeah, totally. Well, there's so many women that don't get or don't understand that if they're in a relationship, that they should have a sense of being able to take care of themselves and to be able to please themselves. Like it baffles me how many women don't understand that their partner doesn't need to meet all of their sexual needs all of the time. And that even to think that they should is pretty much a disservice to your partner. And it's
a disservice to yourself, I think, too.
It's disempowering to yourself as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like, I noticed just that, like, a lot of women in relationships in general expect their partner to be their best friend, be the one that listens to them, be the one that entertains them, be the one that had sex with them, be the one that is their knight in shining armor. Like, they have so many expectations and, like, hats that they expect their partner to fill. And that, like, that's so unrealistic. Like, it's just so unrealistic to expect that out of one person. To fill all those needs, and then adding someone's sexuality on top of that and all the sexual needs of people and all the the complexity of someone's sexuality, like, that's not even fair. And in my just research and investigation in sexuality, there are all these sexuality types that have nothing to do with sex. Right.
So true.
And, like, it's just so cool to explore that, because I can have sexual relationships or have that vibe going or that flow going and just talking to someone.
Yeah.
And, like, I just find that so cool and so fun. And, like, I think a lot of women are missing out. Like, how you're saying, I can have an orgasmic day and not have an orgasm.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I totally second you on that one. That's what I call the difference between sexuality and sensuality. Sexuality is like all about the end thing, right? It's about the act itself, but being in your sensuality and embodied in your sensuality, which is why I call this program this, is because, when you're really tapped into the essence of your sensuality as a whole, that everything becomes a luscious feast of energy that it's energizing. It's not life draining. It's not like you're giving, but it becomes a turn on that everything can be a source of energy that fuels you, that turns you on. And it's not about the turn on itself. It's just that, in the Taoist and Tantric tradition, it's that our sexuality really does fuel our chi and our ability to have spiritual awakenings and live in higher states of being. And if you're not right with that, if you have an unintegrated sexuality, then you're going to feel drained. You're going to feel like you're not really doing your life's work because you literally aren't being energized. You're not tapped into your sensuality enough because you've got too many pleasure blocks to even receive the sensual stimuli in your environment that could, like, really fuel you and propel your life forward.
I just definitely see the difference in my own life when I just am not putting myself first is really all it is. Then, like, it's almost like I'm putting a stake in the ground, but life still moves. Life doesn't stop. And it's like, it makes things so much harder. And, like, you're talking about the body's chi, and it's like, Eastern modalities believe that, like, if you have a blockage in your chi, it will show up in your life. And then it will create disease and disharmony and all that good stuff. And, like, I definitely feel that. Like, one thing I just want to shed light on is, like, what you focus on is what you create more of. And just focusing on pleasure, you just create more of it. And it's, like, almost hard not to make everything pleasurable now.
Yes.
Like seriously, and it wasn't even that long. Like it didn't even, I know we could probably look back in like the Facebook post, but it was about halfway through the program. It was like that, it was just like a shift of just I don't know if like the synchronicity or whatever of my body just like actually flipped. And it was like, oh wow, everything's so much more pleasurable. And like just my thoughts, my mind, my emotions, how my body feels. Like it was just like, oh, I can't stop focusing on pleasure. Like, who cares about pain now? What is pain? I don't know.
Everything's pleasurable now. Yay.
Or not literally, but pretty close.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, tell me about some of the practices or parts of the program that you really enjoyed and how you feel that they benefited you and helped you get where you are.
My favorite was how you had the morning and like night routines, and we could like actually track our pleasure or track what we're doing, or like, make it like a morning and night routine. And that, just my morning and night routine was something I was working on anyways. So I was like, wow, this is just a little tool to help. But then in actually using it and applying it, I noticed my body was craving pleasure at that time of morning and night. And just making that habit of not necessarily physical pleasure, but even you have some meditations or affirmations or the journaling. Like it just, my mind was literally thinking about more pleasurable things. My emotional state was just, a lot happier. And then definitely like at that in the morning and at night, my body craves pleasure. And if my partner can't give it to me at the time, like, I don't care. I'll go do, I have a handful of different things I could decide to do to like still receive that same like pleasurable emotional release that I'm craving.
Yes.
But like now, instead of like, it's so much more creative and expressive now, like even doing some coaching calls with you in the program. It's like after I had some really emotional releases that weren't necessarily the most pleasurable, I got so creative, which was extremely pleasurable to like release or to put into fruition or create or get the ball rolling on some creative thing I had. And the creativeness could even be as simple as, cooking, like something new. Yeah. But it like literally just my body's rhythm changed just due to like that simple morning and night routine that you have on the Vimify app.
Yeah.
I like that literally is one of my favorites. It's so simple, but it created so much change for me. But then number 2 is the Jade Egg Practices. I've known about jade eggs or just eggs or like Kegel balls and stuff like that. I just never like used one. And I definitely think I had like the point of view of I don't need it. I'm young. I'm tight. Whatever. And who cares if I'm young? Who cares if my vagina is naturally tight? It can just get stronger. And that is so cool. That's like, what Kegel balls or jade eggs or just, my sister has like a rose quartz egg, focusing on just growing that muscle that gives you so much pleasure. It makes so much sense to me. And that, yeah, it's just something I never really explored, and your program like makes you explore it, or, you don't have to, but I definitely was curious too. And it's great. Like it gives me so much pleasure. It taught me so much about my body's like warm-up process. And like, what does my body like want and require before it's ready for sex?
Yeah.
Like, even though I'm like extremely sexual and like warmed up probably almost all the time, I can get deeper with it though. And like give myself a lot more time and slow down And that just like allows me to like sink in more and like get deeper with like the experience with just myself or with partner.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
Those are like number 2, like top 2 for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm very similar to you in that, I don't have the blocks to pleasure anymore, right? I'm very sexual, very orgasmic right off the bat, but what I talk about is that growing and expanding and evolving your sexuality means you learn to do things that don't come natural to you, and you learn how to slow down and maybe tap into more of the sensual side or the energetic side of sex, and not be so much about the end goal or not be so much about the orgasm itself. And this is so valuable because then you learn how to receive pleasure in different ways, which is what Hannah's describing, right? That these different ways of tapping into pleasure are new, but also very pleasurable. And it's not something you would have explored before having done the practices. Yeah.
Definitely. And like if a woman, and I say woman because I think we have lots of insecurities that like men just don't. But around sex and like a lot of expectations. But I kind of lost my train of thought there.
That's okay.
What were you saying?
I was just talking about the different routes to pleasure that you grow and evolve your sexuality, you can experience pleasure in different ways that weren't available to you before.
Yeah. Like if I let my insecurities get the best of me, it just comes up as like fear because it's just new. Mm-hmm. And if I have no way to release that, express that, understand that, I'm never going to try it.
Yeah.
You're just not going to try it. You're not going to tackle it. And I don't know, like a good technician doesn't just have a screwdriver and a wrench in his toolbox. He has all the tools. So if I could have all the tools to my recipe of an orgasm, why not use them all?
Heck yeah.
It's just so much more fun.
Yeah. Awesome. I totally agree. Beautiful. Well, who should join this program? Would you recommend it? Who would you recommend it to?
I think that's like a really hard question because every single female, I think that every woman and young, like after they get their period and then start like getting sexual, I think someone needs your program. Any woman that just is interested in anything sexual, or like they can recognize that they have a sex drive, they have sexual needs, and they're open-minded to receiving more pleasure. But that's super broad because that's every woman.
Right.
I definitely recommend like specifically your program to anyone that's experiencing like a lot of shame, blame, guilt, insecurities, self-doubt, self-judgment around sex. Because like sex is like pizza. There's so many different kinds. Like they're all good.
Beautiful. Oh, I love it. Well, any last words before we wrap up our conversation that you'd like to share with anyone listening in?
Just have an orgasmic day. Be open-minded to seeing how you could have an orgasmic day without sex.
Oh my God. I love that.
Just try it. I dare you.
Right. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and all that you've been able to accomplish through the program. Super appreciate you, Hanna.
And I have to thank you for just being that like amazing sexual woman to even create this program and like hold this space for all of us. It's just so amazing and like such a gift. And I thank you so much for all the work you do for us. It's literally changes our life. So like, you're amazing. You're changing the world out there.
Oh, I fully receive that. Thank you so much. All right, my love. Well, we will talk soon.
Sounds good.
Okay, bye.